to complete the case study on the real estate transactions in Sacramento, I thought we'd write a program that helps automate a process that would be nearly impossible to do on your own. What if you wanted to write to identify a summary report of crimes by the total number of times those crimes occurred within a given distance of a certain latitude longitude coordinate? So you have a large file that gives you a list of crimes. There's a description in there: burglary, fictitious check. You have a set of real estate transactions you've already seen. Each one of those has a longitude and latitude, so shouldn't it be possible to find a report of, well, what crimes are happening near what areas? Well, to do that, let's write a set of functions to accomplish this task. And what we're going to do is rely on our extract all records that we've seen already, which will return a list of lists, and we'll do that for this time for the crimes. Given that I have a set of crimes, then I should find out all the crimes that are within a certain distance in miles of a latitude-longitude pair. If you reflect on those data files I just opened up, in the crimes, the column for the longitude is the 8th column, the column for the latitude is the 7th one, and the column for the crime description is the 5th one. And so what I want to do is, well, I want to go through every potential crime that exists, which is in the range of 1 to the length of the crime rows, and I'll pull out the list of records that represents that specific incident. I'll find the longitude and latitude for that particular position, and it looks a lot, but when you break it down into its constituent parts, it's not that bad. Columns are my specific columns, 8, 7, and 5. To find the longitude, I find the column 0, which is 8. I find that field inside of row of 8, and then I convert it to a float, and do the same thing with my latitude. Once I have that, I can now compute, with a method I'll show in a bit, the distance between the latitude longitude of a particular location, presumably where you're going to buy a house, and the latitude longitude of the crime. And if the distance is small enough, that means it's close enough within my threshold, then I'm going to get the crime type and tally them up. And I'll do this by using a dictionary. If that specific crime type doesn't exist yet, then I will set it to 1. But if it does exist, I will increment it by 1. This allows you to quickly tally up information. Once I'm done, I will use this ability to iterate over every entry in that dictionary. And here the entries are the crime types. And for each one of those, I will find out what the tally is and produce a report. To see how this looks, let's do a small little run. We know that we want to find crimes, so I'll have a variable I'll just keep track of for extract all records, and this is going to be my Sacramento crime. So I've got all those. How many crimes do I have in this? 7,000 and change. Let's just pick out a sale, particular house, and this is Sacramento real estate transactions. I've got several hundred of those. I'm just going to pick one at random, the 100th one, and this is the coordinates that you have, the latitude and the longitude, and I want to now put this information together. So I believe this is my best way to describe it is look at the file. My longitude is the second one, the latitude is the first one. So my latitude I'm interested in is this value here. My longitude I'm interested is this value here. And I can then produce a report which summarizes that longitude and that latitude and all the crimes that I know about. Give me find all the crimes within 3 miles of that address. So within 3 miles of that specific address, I find that I have quite a lot of interesting crimes. Let me do that only 1 mile from that address. Okay. How about just a half mile from the address? And then before I know it, down to a quarter mile. So here, this is all within a quarter mile of the address. Burglary, towed vehicles. Seems like there's some kind of high traffic there. Presumably, that's something I might be more curious about. And again, this is the 100th one, which is 4900 71st Street in Sacramento. Let's do a quick Google search to see where this brings us. I'm going to go with friends first, and this is Sacra. Oh, yeah. So here, putting it in, this looks like a nice area just from what you look on the outside. You're pretty much in the grid of the Sacramento, south of 60. I can't tell offhand whether this is a good area or bad area, but I can see this a little densely populated with these street addresses here blocking it in a grid. So maybe this is information that's relevant for me. Maybe I could use other measures to determine whether this is a house that I might be interested in. Nonetheless, you can see how this code allows analysts to really put together different information and try to correlate whatever they can. Let's quickly show some of the other functions that I've just used. This distance miles, for example. I knew that with longitude and latitude there are functions and computations that let you determine the distance between two latitude-longitude pairs on the Earth's surface. I did a quick web search, came across this location, and it had a bunch of formulas, and I just converted it here into Python, and it computes a number. This uses a module called the math module that you've seen in some of the lecture notes, but I don't really talk about too much because I don't want to force you to know about a lot of modules. But the math module is nice because it has some things like pi and e, special constants, have a lot of functions like sine, cosine, tangent, all those. And here, I want to use this formula to convert it. Now, with my latitude and longitude, you first have to convert them to radians. And once you've done that, then you have the ability to do this computation. So what I started with for this particular question was, how do I do a summary report of crimes by total of those crimes within a given distance in miles? And that led me to think about doing a loop, a definite loop, over all of my crimes, finding those crimes that are within a specific distance of the target property that I'm interested in, and once I've determined that it is within the distance, tallying them up using a simple set of code here that uses the dictionary for that purpose, and then printing up my report. So this completes a case study, and I encourage you to look at some of this code and maybe even come up with some of your own ideas that you might be interested in to identify how to extend programs and how to write your own programs to process information that's stored in CSV files.